You've been cordially invited to yet another episode of I'll Tell You What, the podcast that's all love, Black history. I'll Tell You What is presented by Hueido, and I'm Ashley, your favorite raconteuse that tells you these love stories every single Monday. So, don't forget to subscribe on the tube of you or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, follow, share, and if you want to sit in one of the front pews, like, where the reserve folks get to sit and know even more about these famous lovers and their love stories and have your love story request bumped to the front of the line, well, you're going to want to join us on the Tron of Pay, like Trudy, EC, Anita, Monet, Candace, and Tangia. They are some real aisle runners, okay? Also, you know that you can send any comments or questions that you have to I'llTellYouWhat.com or send an email. All right. So, y'all, it's time. Let me tell you about this week's lover. He was a lover and a fighter. Now, not in the boxing sense, but in the gangsta variety. A real OG. Yes. I'm talking about Ellsworth Raymond Johnson, or Bumpy Johnson as you might know him. He was born on Halloween, October 31st, 1905 in Charleston, South Carolina. Bumpy was a notable and very influential figure in the Harlem underworld during the mid-20th century. He was known for his charismatic appeal and his leadership style. But overall, Bumpy played a significant role in the social and economic fabric of Harlem, providing support and protection to those in the African American community. Despite his involvement in illegal enterprises, but also legal enterprises as well, he was widely respected for his efforts to address issues within his community. Now, if you watch the TV show Godfather of Harlem, or even the movie American Gangster, you probably heard of him. But as hard of a man that he was on the exterior, his love for his wife Mayme adds another dimension that many simply don't know about. But you know what I'm about to do. I'll tell you all about it. Let's get into it. So to start, let me tell you how the infamous Bumpy Johnson met his wife Mayme. So let's go back to April 1948. A 30-something-year-old woman named Mayme Hatcher was at Frazier's, this restaurant in Harlem. That day, she, quote, had a taste for some good chicken. After placing her order, she said a, quote, good-looking dark-skinned man walked in and took a seat. He began to talk to the owner of the restaurant about his recent run-in with the law, and in that conversation, Mayme realized that this was the Bumpy Johnson. She described him as, quote, about 5'8" with a medium build, chocolate complexion, and neatly groomed hair. Mayme, on the other hand, was a woman from North Carolina that was, quote, light, bright, and damn near white with straight light brown hair that hung down her back. Now, Mayme was very honest about what attracted her to Bumpy, and she said that it was because, quote, he had money and he was downright gorgeous. So I know some of y'all may call her a gold digger or insinuate bad intentions, but Mayme admitted in her biography about Bumpy that she grew up with sharecropping parents and essentially grew up very poor. And she said, quote, I knew from a very early age that I didn't like being poor. So back to the restaurant, right? Once Mayme put two and two together and recognized who was in the restaurant, she said she crossed her legs and, quote, waited for him to notice her. And that he did and offered to buy her a drink. They chatted about themselves as she sipped on a blackberry brandy. And after a few hours of conversation, they left the restaurant to go to the movies to see To Be or Not to Be. After that, they went back to Bumpy's place where they talked and laughed all night long. And Mayme said he was the ultimate gentleman. He didn't try her or anything. Well, Bumpy and Mayme began to date, but it wouldn't be long before Bumpy would want to take their relationship to the next level. Bumpy Johnson introduced his girl Mayme Hatcher to the soft life. Now, I don't mean that in a stay-at-home girlfriend vlogger type of way. Mayme wasn't creating ASMR videos with her making homemade matcha lattes and enjoying an entire content day in silence, because come on, this was the 1940s, and Bumpy was a man of the streets. The man of the streets, actually. So, Mayme said that while they dated, they went, quote, to boxing matches, concerts, and nightclubs. He took her shopping at the finest luxury department stores like Saks and Bloomingdale's. He brought her around his childhood friends and everything. So 6 months into their relationship, she said he looked at her and said, quote, Mayme, I think you and I should go ahead and get married. And 2 weeks later, they did. They went to the courthouse and got married. Because, as the kids say, Bumpy stood on business. But Mayme admitted that she was not in love with Bumpy when they got married. Well, at least not initially. She was having a really good time with him and she really did like him, but that was it. A month into their marriage, she said she woke up one day and I guess she just realized she had everything she ever wanted. She realized she did in fact love him and, quote, there would never be another man for her. Now, while these two were now husband and wife, they brought more than just themselves into their marriage. You see, Mayme had a teenage daughter named Ruthie who lived with Mayme's mom in North Carolina as Mayme got situated in New York. And Bumpy had a daughter around the same age who was named after his sister Elise and was raised by his sister Genevieve until he came home from a 10-year stint in prison. Elise was the kind of daughter that old folks would call grown, you know, which really means that she was testing her autonomy while constantly seeking consistent love and security. Mayme wrote, quote, Genevieve had complained to Bumpy that the girl was sneaking out, meeting grown men and running the streets. Here she was, her mother dead, her father in prison, and having to be raised by her aunt. Once Mayme married Bumpy, Elise became mostly her responsibility. In addition to a complicated blended family and obviously Bumpy's career choice, the actions of different people would insert various threats to their marriage. Bumpy and Mayme Johnson were married after 6 months of dating in the late 1940s. But as with every marriage, they had their share of scares and hard realities. Many of this had to do with the occupational hazards of Bumpy's career. Makes sense, right? So, about a month before they got married, Bumpy and Mayme went to Jersey to watch a fight with a few of Bumpy's friends and their respective girlfriends or wives. According to the biography co-written by Mayme, one of the friends was supposed to put money given to him by his employers on a certain boxer. He decided to not do that, but to put money on the other guy, thinking that the other guy would be the actual winner and he'd keep the winnings. Well, the original guy won, and the friend's employers wanted their money back. When they learned the situation and what actually happened, they unalived him outside his mama's house. Mayme said, quote, that's when it hit me what kind of lives Bumpy and his friends live. Another time, Bumpy befriended this kid named Flash Walker. He looked at him like a son. Mayme would give him home-cooked meals, and eventually they invited him to move in with them and their 2 daughters. According to Mayme, Flash began to feel himself a bit after being in Bumpy's good graces, and he overstepped his boundaries. Allegedly, he made a bad decision trying to make a quick buck off Bumpy's name, and Bumpy lashed out when he found out. He beat him up something bad. Now the kid, in retaliation, went to the cops and ratted on Bumpy and even lied on him. And it gets worse. Mayme said not only did he try planting drugs in their apartment, but their daughters admitted that Flash tried both of them. Mind you, they were like 15, 16 years old at the time. So this ultimately ended up with Bumpy getting arrested and sent to Alcatraz to do a 10-year bid in the 1950s. Mayme said, quote, "I know there's people that say gangsters' wives don't always know all the stuff their men are into, but those people don't know what they're talking about." She also went on to say that when it came to his life and that part of it, she knew it all. Bumpy's clients, the clubs, the gambling, the money, etc. But there would be parts of Bumpy's life that she obviously was not aware of. Mayme Johnson, the wife of the infamous crime boss Bumpy Johnson, knew a lot about him, including the many nefarious parts of his career. She knew about some of the women that were also in his life prior to their marriage. She wrote about this time in 1948 when she met his ex, a white woman named Helen Lawrenson. Helen was an editor of the magazine Vanity Fair in the 1930s. Mayme hadn't been dating Bumpy that long when allegedly Helen, quote, hurried her butt up to Harlem to see him after he got out of prison. Mayme said after Bumpy introduced the two women to each other, Helen looked her up and down and said, quote, "Well, Bumpy, I see it didn't take you long to get back to your old tricks. One of your top girls, or is she new on the scene?" Mayme was thinking, who is this milk of magnesia in the nerve? Now, honestly, I'm surprised Mayme didn't tell her she'd see her next Tuesday. Truly, she was caught off guard by this entire encounter, but Bumpy responded perfectly. He told Helen, quote, "Mamie's my woman." Now, allegedly, Helen tried to laugh that off until Bumpy told her to leave and never come back again. Then she tried making an excuse, blah, 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 you know, trying to turn this situation around until Bumpy told her again to go on now, get, in so many words. Now, Mayme also knew that Bumpy liked going to the track. Quote, sometimes he'd go alone or sometimes he would take a friend. Mayme mentioned how she would even accompany him from time to time. Now, this one time he came home from the tracks with the Lena Horne. He said that he actually ran into her outside and she needed to use the restroom, so he just let her up. Mamie's friend that was over visiting, and their granddaughter Margaret were blown away. Like, this is the Lena Horne in their presence? Like, psh, right? So being the hospitable Mayme that she was, she offered Lena some lunch and Lena obliged. And while enjoying the food and the conversation, and I guess was feeling really comfortable, Mayme wrote that Lena said to Bumpy, quote, "Oh, I must have left my scarf at the racetrack and that was my favorite scarf. Or maybe I'm lucky and I just left it in your car." Mayme said the entire room went silent. Bumpy, I guess, starts sweating bullets internally and immediately takes Lena home and returns with a necklace and earrings for Mayme. Mayme said, quote, "Neither Bumpy nor I mentioned the incident again. I never did wear those pearls and I never watched another Lena Horne movie again." Woo! So, obviously, Mayme knew that her husband, Bumpy Johnson, cheated on her, or at least put himself in a very, very compromising situation with Lena Horne, and who knows who else at some point. But that did not end their nearly 20-year marriage. The night that Bumpy died, Mayme recalled that he wasn't like himself. Actually, the days leading up to it, he looked very ill. Mayme wanted him to stay at home and rest and take care of himself, but he claimed he was fine. He tried to convince her by serenading her and dancing in their home. Mayme, through this, could tell he was, quote, restless. He looked bad and his behaviors weren't quite himself, but yet he decided to go out that night. After going to a skin game, he ended up at a restaurant with two of his best friends. Right after his food arrived, he grabbed his chest and fell to the ground. Mayme arrived at the hospital, but sadly it was too late. And on July 7th, 1968, Bumpy died of congestive heart failure. She said thousands of people attended his funeral. However, some that claimed to have been his friends, and she named names like Sidney Poitier, Duke Ellington, Ossie Davis, Count Basie, and Lena Horne didn't come. Probably because at the time he was dealing with a lot of ongoing legal issues. Now, though she understood why, Mayme said, quote, "I'll never forgive them." Mayme continued to live in New York until she moved to Philadelphia in 2004. Along with author Karen E. Quinones Miller, she wrote the biography Harlem Godfather, The Rap on My Husband Ellsworth Bumpy Johnson, that was published in 2008. It was a great read, by the way. If you want a book to pick up and read, yeah, grab that. Anyway, like her husband, sadly, Mayme passed away in May 2009, also due to congestive heart failure. Their lives have been immortalized through this book, but also through the Epix TV show Godfather of Harlem, that is mostly set during the time in Bumpy's life when he got out of prison from Alcatraz, so essentially the last 5 years of his life. And that, my friends, Owl Runners, concludes the love story of Bumpy and Mayme Johnson. So what did you think about Bumpy and Mayme Johnson's love story? If you want to learn more about their life, head to I'llTellYouWhat.com, where I have linked to all the resources I used in this week's episode. And you know the drill. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, and if you really want to be down and becoming an official Owl Runner, join our Tron of Pay. Come back next week for yet another Black History love story. See you in the pews.